Welcome to What Are You Sporting About podcast, a podcast about business, employment, sports, and entertainment to help educate, support, and guide you to your next level. Here's your host, attorney Sivonnia DeBarros.
What up, y'all? Hi. What is everybody doing on this evening in the middle of the week? I am your host, Sivonnia DeBarros, the protector of athletes. And I have a special guest for us today. So I know y'all been rocking with me pretty solo through Black History Month, but I found somebody to shake things up this month, and I'm super excited. So let's bring him to the stage. Welcome, Mr. Courtney Ruffin. I'm excited actually to have you here. So welcome to What Is Sporting About podcast.
I appreciate it. So listen, Sivonnia, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. And so let me just tell you guys out there in the tech world, if you are watching this right now live, bear with us because we're actually having an ice storm up here in Illinois. So it could be affecting or impacting our stream. But do not worry. We'll definitely make sure that you still get all the good information for today's live taping. So I got to remind you guys, if you have not already, I want to encourage you, please, sir and madam, find your favorite podcasting platform. Look up What Are You Sporting About podcast and make sure you subscribe. Subscribe today, share it with a friend, tell your friends about it. So you never miss an episode. It is my honor and definitely one of my goals to continue to bring information and experts to the table to help you guys really to move in the right direction towards the success that you want to see, both personally and professionally. So without further ado, Mr. Courtney Ruffin, again, thank you for being here. I recently saw you speak around financial goals, financial setting, financial strategy, all of those things, and how it can help us to build a legacy. But before we dive into all of that good stuff, I want to learn a lot more about who you are outside of the financial side of things. But yeah, I want to learn about your past, your history, and then how that kind of got you into this space. So share some information about that.
Absolutely. I appreciate it a great deal. So again, like you can see, my name is Courtney Ruffin. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. I currently live in a small area in Tampa, Florida called Waimama. Yes, Waimama is the area that I live in. So I'm married. I have 5 children, beautiful children of a blended family. I have a history with sports. I played high school basketball, varsity letter 2 years, should have been 3, but I tore my knee at the beginning of the season, my sophomore year. So I had to play JV. And I currently coach basketball. I am been in the coaching space for 23 years. I'm 45 years old, so I've been doing it quite a while, and I enjoy it. I've been doing it the last 5 years for free as a volunteer, assistant varsity coach. So I came into the industry of financial services, just through watching people that were close in proximity to me have some flexibility, have some freedom, and made a good, decent amount of money. And I just posed a question one day asking the gentleman what he did for a living. And he told me he was a firefighter and that he sold life insurance. And I picked his brain a little more and ended up getting licensed. But we were only doing burial policies, right? We were only doing, policies that paid enough to bury people and maybe pay a few bills after they were gone. And I met another gentleman by the name of Darnell Moat, who was my immediate mentor in the business that I am in. And he told me, hey, man, you're young. I need you to come over here and do a little business with me. You can still do burial policies and help people out where you're at. But we got some more we have to do for our community. You selling $35,000 policies right now. I need you to come over here and sell some $10 million policies, because we need to change the trajectory of our people in our community. And at the end of the day, when I got in a little deeper into the business, I started to realize how not having that amount of life insurance has impacted my family. I lost 3 prominent men in my family, 2 grandfathers, Both of them I never met. They passed away before I was born, and an uncle who passed away when I was like 6 or 7 years old. All three of those men were entrepreneurs. All three of them were going to establish a legacy for me, but they left too soon. I think the oldest one was 46 years old when they transitioned. One of my grandfathers was only 33. None of them had life insurance, right? So with them trying to build the things that they were trying to build, they were trying to set us up for a 6 to 7 figure lifestyle, right? In their 40s, and they didn't make it, and they didn't have any insurance to back it up. And that's been our story from the beginning of time, not having enough life insurance to transfer wealth and protect other things like our property and our businesses and our investments and things like that. So that's my story. And that's my why. It's because I want people, I'm trying to make up for what my uncle and my grandfathers didn't get a chance to do, and help people do the same thing for their families.
Man, I love the story. And that's a great why to have. And before we dive a little deeper, I just want to remind you guys the registration for the NIL Combine is open for our 2023 live event here in Chicago. It's going down, y'all, July 27th through the 29th. If you have not gotten your tickets, you need to do so. Make sure you go over to bit.ly/NIL Combine 2023, bit.ly/NIL Combine 2023, and make sure that is in all caps. I'm glad that you shared that information, because we are in an era where college athletes are able to monetize their name, image, and likeness. I'm a former track and field athlete. I played other stuff before college, but track and field is what I did in college. And we are seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs, if you will, really rise up and, monetize something that they did not have the opportunity to do before. But there is still this gap between understanding how to keep what you are building and earning possibly right now, or what you could, with the potential of what your earnings could be in the future. There's a gap between, I can go and make this brand right now and I might be able to make this quick money, versus learning what are some of the tools that you can implement, like insurance, like financial strategy and planning, like some of the things that go into building a full estate plan package. So I like how you share about your grandfathers, because I think about so many young people, even people that might be my age. What happens if you do own your own thing and maybe you just can't work anymore? You're above ground, but maybe you can't work anymore. What could happen if you actually had a proper insurance policy to pay you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And the majority of my clients are entrepreneurs, especially with the uptick in entrepreneurship since 2020, right? Since COVID. In our community in particular, we've skyrocketed in entrepreneurship, even if it's just something like a side hustle. But a lot of people are gravitating away from work. We've heard about the Great Resignation, right? It's happening more so with the youth. But hey, some of the people that are my age or just a little bit younger are kind of adapting the same idea of, I want an easy life. I want to make good money, but I don't want to work as hard as my parents or my grandparents had to work, right? So a lot of people are getting into being influencers online, which is great, fantastic. But like you said, what happens if you get sick? What happens when you transition? What happens? How are you going to retire? When are you going to do YouTube videos, TikTok videos your whole life? You're going to be 70, 80 years old, 50, 60 years old, still doing, maybe you will and still be making money. I don't know. But at some point you want to transition your life to somewhere else. And you got to have a plan for that. At the end of the day, what I tell people, bare minimum, if you got a million dream and you ain't got $1 million life insurance policy to go with it, you're hustling backwards.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. So I'm also from Florida, and someone who's so near and dear to my heart passed away around the end of 2020, in November. My grandmother. But my grandmother, she is the reason why I understand legacy and planning for legacy. But if I'm being honest, it wasn't until she really passed that I was like, okay, I got to get this life insurance thing in play. She always talked to us, and I know she talked to me, but she always talked to me about what her end of life plans were. The fact that she had long-term care policies, the fact that she even had policies set up for us, like for her grandkids. So it was, I don't know, I guess kind of growing up, having those conversations. Not everyone is privy to it, but there was still a lot, and is a lot, that I'm having to learn about financial planning, financial strategy, long-term support, disability options, being able to pay yourself or create your own bank, so to speak, from insurance plans or financial plans that you create. But just knowing that I had someone that was having these conversations and almost kind of like introducing the concept of legacy after life was essential to me, and still is essential in how I move and the decisions that I make, for long term, really. So before we dive deeper into some of the things that people can do, because you mentioned the Great Resignation, and we do know that especially in 2020 there was so much unrest, right? There was police killings all over the place. Black Lives Matter just like boomed. And then there were like shutting down of businesses. So Black women essentially are the backbones of a lot of the largest companies in this country, right? But Black women, from what I believe, started realizing, okay, I don't need this job. Like, they're sitting home anyway. Everybody's home. They're sitting home. I don't need this job. And then when some of these companies started opening back up and trying to pull people in to work in the campuses, and folks are still catching COVID 2019, COVID-19, people are like, no, I'm not trying to die.
Right.
So we also saw an uptick in entrepreneurism in Black women, right? So kind of take us through some of the historical aspects of financial planning or financial strategy. And if you can, loop that around to why it's so amazing to see this major uptick in Black entrepreneurism, especially for Black women now today, knowing what we know from the past.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you say take it back, we go all the way back to slavery, right? We go all the way back to our unfortunate inception in this country, right? Proud to be an American, proud to be here, proud to be who I am and heritage of my people. But, everybody knows our history, and our history was very unfortunate, right? So there was a time some years ago, right? A long time ago, we go back to 1845, right? So 1845, the industry of life insurance in particular was in danger. It was a plummeting industry. And there was a particular agent who was working for a company that will go unnamed. It's still a prominent company today. That he had the idea that they should start putting life insurance on slaves. And this individual, these are stories that you can all look up. New York Times has the story. That he sold 30 policies in one day once he had this idea, right? So, which was a record at the time. It would be a record today for me to write 30 policies in one day, right? It's only 24 hours in a day. It usually takes me anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes to do a financial analysis to find out what kind of life insurance you need before we even start talking about writing the policy itself. So I don't know if I can write 30 in one day if I'm doing my due diligence, right? Trying to figure out the right fit. But that's a lot of policies in a day. And we essentially, without making the story too long, we essentially saved over a period of 3 years, we saved the industry of life insurance. Sales skyrocketed. In a span of a few years, one company outsold the industry by selling about 508 life insurance policies, all on slaves. And we made up a third of the industry 3 years from this individual having the idea of putting life insurance on slaves. As you can imagine, our history is a dark one. It's a tragic one. So you can imagine there was some abuse, of those situations. There were situations where people would use slaves that had life insurance policies on them as collateral to get loans from the bank, right? So if the person defaulted on the loan, guess who now owns the slave with that life insurance policy? So now the bank does, and the bank has a valuable commodity in a person who is free labor, and then they can sell that person off for free labor and then keep the life insurance policy. And then when that person died, whether they were killed or just died of natural causes, the bank gets more money, right? So this kind of stuff happened over hundreds of years, right? Decades. There did come a point in time where we were able to start getting life insurance. But when we started getting life insurance, we were only allowed to get burial policies, just enough to put us in the ground. And we all know who owned the funeral homes, right? So we had the life insurance policies. We were paying a premium to our counterpart. And then when we transitioned, the counterpart got the money and buried us, and probably charged us more than the value we were getting in our service, right? Probably just threw us in a ditch somewhere and didn't give us the service and pocketed the money, right? And then we were also being charged anywhere between 20 to 30% upcharge on the premium versus what our counterpart was paying. So if we break that down, we start thinking about how we think today about how much stuff costs and the value are we getting out of things, right? We start to say, hey, I want something that's cheap, instead of saying, hey, I want something that's valuable. I want something that's cost effective. I want to know what I'm getting from my money if I'm going to spend that much. Those are the questions and the things that we should be asking. But and we look at each other and we tend to blame each other or judge each other for thinking like that. And that's not the right thing to do. We have a history of indoctrination on the way that we act, the way that we think, the way things are sold to us. There's a strategy to it. There's a whole YouTube video on how to sell to Black people back in the, I think, 40s, 50s or something, right? And this is something that's just been developed over time, and we kind of just have fallen into it, right? So going back, staying where we are, when we start to begin to be able to work and earn a living and maybe have some property, we would die without enough life insurance because we still only had $1,000 worth of life insurance, maybe, right? But our properties were worth more than that. So when we transitioned, most of the time it was the men who were working and owned the property, and you probably had a wife and some children. When you transition, guess what? Your wife wasn't able to hold on to the property, right? Because there probably were some laws that said she couldn't, but even if she could, there was no money for her to pay for the taxes. Or if there was a mortgage left on the property, she couldn't pay it because there was not enough life insurance, and that man who was working was no longer bringing in income. So this, if you add up dozens to hundreds to thousands to hundreds of thousands of us in this situation over the course of decades, transitioning without enough life insurance to have our income be supplemented while we're not here, pay for our homes, pay for our properties, our families having to relocate, move into areas that were, maybe not as prominent, maybe where, it was a little less, conducive to the living style that they had before the head of the household passed away. This happened to us over a course of decades, right? This is how we effectively lost our wealth, right? We can attribute other factors, our towns and businesses that we've established being burned down, Jim Crow laws, and, all other kind of different inequalities, right? We can factor all of that stuff in, not having equal wage, all of the different things. But a major factor was we weren't sold enough life insurance. Moving forward, I think it was in the civil rights. There was a clause in the Civil Rights Act that changed the fact that life will change the vantage point that life insurance companies could charge Black folks a higher premium than others, right? That happened during the Civil Rights Act. That's the late 1950s, 1960s, right? That wasn't too long ago. We got parents and grandparents that were born during those times, right? So now bringing it forward, right? For us not to take advantage of life insurance from the aspect of one day I'm not going to be here. One day I want my kids and or my grandkids to have a great life, the life that I was working to establish, and or not work as hard as me, right? Not saying that we want to make them to be spoiled or, not bring any value to society or anything like that because they're a trust fund kid or anything like that. But we want our kids to have a leg up. We want them to have a head start. We want them to have an advantage, not to have to take loans to go to school. Have a deposit for that down payment on the house set aside, right? And that's just that's the fundamentals of life insurance. Hey, I got a policy. When I die, you get paid. But there's so many other advantages of insurance that people can take advantage of while they're still alive. It's my main mission, right? I have a team of people that I work with. We all can write a life insurance policy about on your life based on when you die. We can do that like that. But our mission is to talk about how can life insurance change your life from a monetary lit perspective while you still breathe right now, today. And that's the main mission. And it's something that's been going on for decades in other communities. There's a lot of us that know about it. It's growing since 2020, but there's not enough of us that know about it. And every platform that I can get on, I'm gonna yell from the rooftop, guys, understand your financial outlook, understand where you're headed, understand how exposed you are. One of our, I'll end here, I know I've been rambling, but one of our main faults is we'll say, I got life insurance at work. Well, most of us make $50,000 a year on average, right? Most of us gonna get 2 times our salary at work at most. That's $100,000. That means your husband, your wife, your children will make it another 2 years with your salary, if that, because we know how it's gonna go. The funeral gonna eat up some of that. We're gonna do some wild spending. We're gonna spend some stuff. Now we're gonna spend up about half of that money in the first 6 to 8 months, right? We know it. So it really ain't $100,000 in 2 years. That money is gonna be gone quickly. So what's gonna happen if you transition and you got a 7 or 8 year old and they got to make it to 16, 17, 18, 20 years old as an adult and your income is gone? This is why we got to start having 6-figure, 7-figure conversations about how much life insurance you got in your life, especially if you have a family and especially if you have a mortgage.
Absolutely. I love everything that you said. And while it's still very present in my mind, talking about having the right amount of insurance, what if one of your heirs decides to challenge your estate? People don't even account for potential probate actions, which is very possible. And especially even if you take the additional steps to create a trust to protect your assets from probate, what happens if you never go back to review those things and there's residual, assets that are left over? People are probably going to fight over that stuff. But there's something that you said that made me think of my mentor. Like one of my mentors, something he always says is that people always, they either have this poverty mindset or this wealthy mindset. And the difference is poverty mindset person, really pays attention to the cost and they ignore the opportunity. But a wealthy mindset person, they pay attention to the opportunity, they ignore the cost. And it also makes me think about my industry. When entrepreneurs, especially those who are primarily either brown and black, come for legal services, they're like, I know I need this, but they pay attention more so to the cost and not thinking about what the opportunity is, right? How can we protect your interests so that you can have long-term sustainability on the brands and the business that you're creating, but also be able to protect your profits from someone not coming in and trying to, scoop you up,
Right.
So that has been an issue, I know for sure, in our communities. And I think a lot is tied to our ancestors who have been enslaved and just trying to rework that notion of what having a wealthy mindset really is. Because so if we look at the individuals who pivoted into entrepreneurship during COVID-19, right? They might think, okay, well, I have a wealthy mindset because I decided to go out and do something on my own that might be more challenging to start off, but it'll give me more freedom. I'll be able to set my own schedule. I'll be able to make my own money to support my family. But then there's all these other things. Your kid might not want your business. But even if you are the sole provider for your children, who's to say they're going to be taken care of if you don't look at the opportunity of what real financial planning and insurance can provide for your kids? If you're only going to go out there and say, okay, well, let me go and buy a $10 a month policy, like what is that going to cover?
Exactly. Right? It's going. Now it could cover the funeral just fine. Before COVID, you'd have had some struggles. Some things have been reduced because of COVID, but be rest assured, those high funeral charges going to bounce back real nicely if they haven't already. I haven't had to pay for a funeral in my life. I haven't, known of anybody who's had to pay the cost of a funeral in the last couple of years, maybe last year, but you be rest assured before COVID, a funeral or burial can cost you anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000, depending on what state you in. You know what I mean? So you having a burial policy is great. Be mindful of your income, be mindful of your budget, but we got to do everything we can do to strive to leave, anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million behind for our families, especially if we have children.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely real. So that moves me to another piece about this, because I don't remember the exact numbers for the statistics, but I do recall seeing an article in Forbes about how Black individuals are more likely to be denied for funding for their businesses. So you decide to launch your business and no one will fund you. You can't get a business loan. Even if you've been in business for quite some time, there are these different rules, most likely for Black individuals and especially for Black women in business. But having insurance can be the differentiator, right? So we can become our own banks. We don't have to look toward other, large banks or white-owned banks to fund us and to give us money, but we can invest in our own businesses and brands. We can invest in other people's brands. So can you talk a little bit about the history of how other people have been able to essentially be their own bank and how we can take those lessons to be our own bank now and later in the future?
Yeah, so absolutely. I appreciate that question indeed. So, the be your own bank concept is something that is definitely growing in popularity. I get phone calls every day where people say, hey, I saw this video on TikTok, and it was talking about be your own bank. And I'm very interested in how that works. And at the end of the day, it's a very simple concept. It's a concept of you taking your money and putting it in a place where somebody is going to give you more interest than the bank is going to give you. And then over a course of period of time, somebody is going to allow you to take that money, borrow it, use it for whatever you want to use it for, and pay it back if you so choose to do so, which you should in an infinite banking concept. You don't have to there's no credit check. There's no financial statement that you got to fill out. It's a simple, once your money has had its chance to mature, you can take the money out and do whatever you need to do with that money, right? Some examples, like you asked for, Walt Disney World, right? Walt Disney, he went to a bank and asked the bank to give him a loan so he can start Walt Disney World, or Walt Disneyland at the time. And from the stories I've read, they laughed at him. They told him, no, nobody's going to go to an amusement park and, ride around in rides. Nobody's going to do that. That's goofy. And he decided, hey, you know what? I got this life insurance policy, got a little money in it. Let me take it. I'm just going to start it on my own. And then you got Walt Disney World. Imagine the disdain from banks, the banks that were shopped this proposal and they missed out on it, right? Think about that windfall that they missed out on. Then you got J.C. Penney. J.C. Penney had established his business, but his business was in jeopardy, and he was unable to. At one point in time, he was unable to pay the salaries of his employees. So to sustain himself, he decided to take out his money out of his life insurance policy and pay his employees' salary until they got business back in order. J.C. Penney's is still around today, and McDonald's has a similar story to Walt Disney. Nobody thought drive-through hamburgers was going to work. And Ray Kroc, who started McDonald's, had a different idea, took the money out of his life insurance policy. And I do have one other story. There's a gentleman that is a mentor in our business. I'll reserve his name just, for privacy's sake. But he was in business. I think he was in a pharmaceutical business going back into the 90s. And that was right around the time when the internet came around. And the internet automations pushed him a little bit out of the business, right? Started to put himself in a position where his business will default. He was doing well for himself. He was married with children, house, couple of cars. You know, they were able to vacation, do whatever he want. But it got to a point to where his business was starting to flail and they were starting to get behind on their bills to the point where the cars were starting to get repossessed. And he said one day he got a phone call. And it got to his wife used to pay all the bills, right? So he said he got a phone call and his wife got so tired of telling the people he don't got any money, they don't have any money, that she gave him the phone. And he said he got on the phone and he said, hey, you know, let's say the guy's name on the end of the line was John. And he said, hey, John, I know you probably calling to, you know, collect money, but we don't have any money. I just, you know, I don't know what to tell you. He was like, well, told the individual on the other side, like, hey, this is for your life insurance, right? So are you at a point where you need some money? And he says, well, John, if you got some money for me, I'll take some money because we definitely need some money on the other side. And John told him, well, he's like, hey, I don't have any money, but you do have $20,000 in your life insurance policy. And the individual, he said he looked at his wife and he was like, I didn't even know I had a life insurance policy, right? Which is probably something he shouldn't have said because you're supposed to know you got a life insurance policy on you, you know. But at the end of the day, he took the money and they caught up on all of their bills. I think he said he took about half of the money, used it to catch up on his bills, and he took the other half of the money and he started a life insurance brokerage, right? And today, I think he's worth about $5 million. You know, so it's just things like that. Like we need to, you know, again, have an understanding of how money works. What are our banks really doing? Our banks really aren't doing the things with their money and how they make money the same way with the advice they're giving you to do with yours, right? They're telling you to give you all their money, let them save it and hold it for you and to borrow from them, right? For everything you need, your car, your personal loan, your house. Banks aren't operating like that, right? Banks are actually the majority of the things that banks actually buy up, life insurance, right? Because life insurance is the most guaranteed. And yes, you can buy life insurance from other people, right? Life insurance is the most guaranteed transfer of wealth we have. You pay a premium, somebody dies, whoever holds the policy gets paid. It's automatic.
I mean, I love those stories because I think people believe that it's much more difficult than what it is. You know, obviously there are rules, like you said, until your policy mature that you can really borrow against that policy. But it's just the same as you having a nest egg of savings and you invest that into a new business venture or idea or someone else that has a profitable idea. And what I love about those stories are, you know, people didn't believe that it would work. So going back to that mindset piece, we can't be so focused on what other people might think about future opportunities connected to the investments that we will make, time, money, sacrifice, you know, but really be in a position, of course, to make certain decisions that could be conducive to creating a sustainable lifestyle and future and legacy for those that we love. And essentially what we're doing this all for, you know. But I love those stories. And when I saw you speaking for one of the churches, what was it, Sunday? I think it was Sunday.
It was last Wednesday.
Oh, it was last Wednesday? Okay, so yeah. Last Wednesday, you see my days like.
What happens when you're busy? When you're busy and balling, you know, you lose track of days.
Lose track of days. I love the stories. And I said, you know, I really feel that this would be beneficial for Black and Brown individuals to recognize that there's a history to every single thing. And so one thing I want to challenge people to do, if you're watching this live or you're watching or listening to this later, is to think about how your actions are being guided by what you believe and how those beliefs have been shaped by your history, your personal history, but also the greater history of Black Americans, you know, in this country, because that could really have a lot to do with how you're approaching business, how you're approaching insurance, how you're approaching financial strategy, how you're approaching legacy, and then just start plugging those gaps. So, Courtney, how can people connect with you, especially, you know, once they hear this and they see how amazing you are? How can they connect with you so they can follow up if they have any additional questions or want to engage in getting a policy?
Absolutely. I'm available via phone call or text message. My cell phone number is 904-874-3634. You can reach me via email at agentruffin@gmail.com. All right. And then my website is www.healthmarkets.com/cruffin.
Awesome. So I hope you guys was able to get that. Give me your email address again.
It's Agent Ruffin, Agent Ruffin. Yep, just one word all together, agentruffin@gmail.com.
All right. So if you have any questions, you want to set a meeting to talk with him, make sure you either call him, go to send him an email, or go to his website so you can connect with him. Don't fall victim to all the, you know, historical stuff. We're too advanced, and we have way too many opportunities available now to still be stuck in the past. So if you are definitely an individual and you know that you are meant for more, you deserve more, your kids deserve more, your family, period. Because let me tell y'all something about Sivonnia DeBarros. Like, the stuff I'm creating is supposed to be here for like many generations. Not one, not two, not even three. I'm gonna even say not even five. Like, I need to be the one where my sixth great grandchild is like, oh yeah, that was Grandma Sivonnia created this. You know, so we got to really get that into our bones, where we're putting action and using the right tools and vehicles to allow our legacies to live on. Because one thing will happen, and I'm telling you, this is for sure, you will create a legacy, whether it is sustainable or not.
That's huge. You're gonna create a legacy, no matter what, if it's sustainable or not, whether it's good or bad. And it's funny you tell that story, because my wife and I we laugh about this, but we're dead serious about saying that we want to be that cartoon portrait in that animated portrait in everybody's house of our great grandchildren for a long time to come. And you start talking to people about infinite estate planning, where your estate plan never dies. Guess what the foundation of that is? It's life insurance, right? I can only benefit from the estate plan that Sivonnia set aside if I have a life insurance that's payable to her estate plan. So I come in and I can take $500,000 out, but when I die, $600,000 goes back in. That's how your estate plan lives forever.
Yo, if y'all ain't catch what he just put down, if y'all did not just catch that, okay, that was worth everything. All right. So listen, we got to think bigger about this. If whatever you've already been thinking, I'm just going to tell you, you've already been thinking too small. So we got to go back to the drawing board so we can really set things up the way that they're supposed to be. We are called to be the greatest of all. Like, I ain't trying to put nobody down, but if you think about it, the suffering of Black people is so monumental. It has no bounds. It does not just live in the boundaries of the United States of America, right? Why is it necessary to continue to marginalize one group of people over the other? The only answer I have is that I do believe that we are called to be to really, I don't even know how to articulate this. I don't even know how to articulate it, but I don't know. I just feel like we are called. And if we create the platforms and we are the ones who have the power to decide where our monies go, we can change a whole bunch of things, y'all. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Absolutely. We definitely are a called people, and we have a responsibility. We have an inherent duty to make up for what our ancestors sacrificed. We do, and it's so much easier than we realize. We have to change our mindsets. There's plenty of books. If you're not a reader, there's plenty of video shorts on YouTube that can just help you with your mindset. If you just consume something for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes a day, that's going to help you think differently about how you view money, how you view freedom, how you view success. There's so many people that are fearful of success. They're fearful of being great because they don't know how they're going to sustain it. That's all your mind protecting you from the unknown. That's all it is. So you just got to retrain your mind to say, hey, when I don't know something, I don't have to fear it. I just got to go figure out how that I can get the education and the knowledge to pursue it.
I like that. Yeah. And I totally believe that if you have a fear of being great and you have a fear of being success, what does that say? It's since you're just afraid of what you already are. You got to walk in that. You got to live in that, right? And the way that you can come to be all of that is to do exactly what you were saying, do. Don't be afraid of it. Lean into it. Find the resources and the people who can be conducive to that continual growth, because you are the answer. Courtney, I appreciate you so much for coming on here. Again, guys, make sure you reach out to him. His number is in the comments. You can reach out to him at 904-874-3634 or email him at agentruffin@gmail.com. Courtney, give us your website again.
It's www.healthmarkets with an S at the end.com/cruffin.
All right. So healthmarkets with an S.com/cruffin. Y'all can go to this website as well if you want to connect. I'd recommend that you do. Again, thank you so much for coming on to this platform. And for the rest of you guys, you already know what time it is. I've told you guys, we are going live July 27th through the 29th of this year. We're going to be here in Chicago for the NIL Combine, the #1 premier event for name, image, and likeness to support, help student athletes in their village to understand what NIL truly is, to remove the curtains so you guys can monetize, leverage, and protect your brands, not just for now, but for years and years to come. So make sure you get your ticket. Early bird rates are available. So visit bit.ly/NIL Combine 2023. Again, that's bit.ly/NIL Combine 2023. You're not going to want to miss this. I am Sivonnia DeBarros, protector of athletes. And as always, guys, it is my pleasure to educate, support, and to definitely motivate you to your very next level. Until next time, I'll check you guys later. Ciao.
Joining us this week on What Are You Sporting About podcast. Make sure to visit our website, prosportlawyer.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite platform is, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, What Are You Sporting About? Attorney Sivonnia DeBarros is available for private consulting at ldebarros.com. And remember, we're here to educate, support, and guide you in your journey to success, because we're all sporting about something.